A somber global mood leads to a decline on the Wall Street. Markets slipped to the day's low with the Nifty, Sensex and Bank Nifty all falling over 1%. All sectoral indices barring the pharma index trade in the red. A spectre of Fed staying with higher rates for a longer period of time spooks global markets. The US 10-year yield hovers close to the 4% mark. Asian markets see cuts. The dollar strengthens on risk aversion. Fears of an intense heat wave leads to brisk buying in stocks of air conditioner and cooler manufacturers. The Met Department says temperatures may remain above normal in central and western India for the next 4 days. And Shree Cement's H.M. Bangur tells CNBC-TV18 that costs are likely to fall over the last quarter and volumes are expected to grow 10% in Q4. Adds that the ACC Ambuja deal was done at fair valuation. Tata Power tells CNBC-TV18 that invoking the emergency measure to shore up power supply before peak summer demand is a good and timely move. The company says it is in discussions to sign supplementary PPA along the lines of Section 11 of the Electricity Act, with tariffs expected to be on a cost-plus basis, along with full recovery of fixed and variable cost. Hi, a very good afternoon and welcome to Business Lunch. I'm Pavitra Parekh. Those are the top headlines that we have for you this Wednesday afternoon. There's a lot going on, but it is the market which is just grabbing all eyeballs right now. We have been talking about the weak handover that we got from the US markets, and on the back of that, you have our markets trading with sharp cuts pretty much at the low point of the day. The Nifty is over 200 points in the red, and a bulk of this pain really coming through from the financials. So the Nifty Bank has recovered just a little bit, but it's still around 580 points lower right now. That is the kind of pressure that you're seeing on the financials. Some of the larger names will be up for you, whether it's an HDFC Bank, Kotak Bank, SBI. These are all contributing sharply to the kind of losses that we've seen. The Bajaj twins once again under pressure. In fact, if you look at just the PSU Bank index, once again, it is the worst performing index. And this year already, it has seen a near 16% cut. So that is, the kind of pressure that we've seen on this pack. A lot of the smaller banking names also seeing sharp cuts. So whether it's a Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, Union Bank, Canara Bank, you name it. But these are some of the larger losers. The metals, they did do well yesterday. Today, all of them are seeing sharp cuts come through as well. These are some of the steel players on your screen. The sole spot of green, perhaps a few of the pharma names holding up with just a minor green tick. And then you have a lot of the air cooler and AC makers. We'll talk more about that. But these, on account of the Met Department saying that the heat wave is likely to start perhaps earlier and also extend in the western parts, you have these stocks which are buzzing around in trades. We'll talk more about that. And in fact, let's actually start with that story. The Indian Met Department has sounded the alarm over higher temperatures than normal being recorded across most parts of the country. So after SkyMet sounded the initial alarm, the IMD too has issued heatwave alerts for the Kutch and Konkan regions, as well as Maharashtra's Raigad, Ratnagiri, as well as Mumbai suburban region. So Abhimanyu is here to tell us more about that. Abhimanyu?
Well, a heat wave has been predicted and has been stated as likely by SkyMet Weather for the first week of March. Additionally, the Agriculture Ministry had already formed a committee to assess the possibility of damage to the wheat crop due to an impending heat. The Power Ministry had also issued an order in view of an expected rise in power demand in the upcoming summers, and had asked all imported coal-based power plants to operate at full capacity. Apart from this, IMD had said that there was low visibility which was reported at various airports across India today, and several airports had reported low visibility, and there was the incidence of dense fog which the IMD has been attributing to a sudden rise and a consistent rise in the day and night temperatures across North India, which is followed by clear skies, as well as the incidence of western disturbances, which is leading to radiation like dense fog. It remains to be seen how the situation is going to pan out and what further advisories will be issued by the government in due course, especially for the farmers, and keeping in mind the wheat stocks, which last year had gotten damaged to a certain extent due to an unexpected heat wave. So what rearguard action, what preparedness the government is going to exercise as part of the committees which have been formed by the union government is something which will be known in a few weeks' time.
Oh, absolutely. This will be all important for us to track. Abhimanyu, thanks a lot for bringing us all of the details. In fact, with the higher temperatures expected across the country, power demand is expected to spike, with the government expecting peak electricity demand of 229 gigawatts. This is in April. To tide over any kind of potential shortage, the Power Ministry has directed plants running on imported coal to now run at full capacity. This is what we told you yesterday as well. So earlier today, we got in touch with the management of Tata Power to understand how this move would really affect their company. So listen in to what he had to tell us. He says it's quite a timely move.
I think it's a very good move and a very timely move by Government of India to invoke Section 11. And this is because the demand of power is going up. In fact, this year, even in the winter months, we've seen the demand going to 205 and 206 as peak power. But all the 4 units will definitely operate at full capacity as we had been doing last year. And we should be in a position to offer the full capacity to all the 5 procurers.
Okay.
So you can expect that 3,200 megawatt will definitely come. And if we are able to revive the 4th unit, then the 5th unit, then 4,000 megawatt will get generated.
All right, that is the word coming in from Tata Power. In fact, taking cognizance of a potential heat wave, brokerage house Jefferies has also issued a bullish call on AC maker Voltas on expectations of higher demand. So Sonia is here to bring us some of the highlights from their note. Sonia?
Well, thanks a lot for that. So the bad news is this. The IMD has warned of a first heat wave in the month of March itself, and it's expected to be a severe heat wave with temperatures going all the way up to about 37 to even 40 degrees in certain parts of the western region. Now, here's the good news. A lot of the white good companies like Volta, Symphony, Blue Star could benefit, and brokerages are very upbeat. In fact, Blue Star has hit a fresh 52-week high today as well. The stock is up in excess of 3%. Now, Jefferies wrote a note on Voltas where they have a buy with an aggressive target price of 1,050. They say that Voltas will be a big beneficiary of the heat wave due to higher volumes as well as higher margins for the company. Now, FY24 should see both the AC and the engineering segment of Voltas do well. So in that context, Voltas is in a sweet spot. The other thing is that Voltas has seen a 1-year underperformance compared to the Nifty in terms of a stock price. Hence, there is further upside expected on the stock.
All right, Sonia, thanks a lot for that. It is all of these stocks which are really buzzing around in trade. On the same lines, we also spoke to Rupesh Shah, who is Executive Director of Corporate Affairs at Symphony this morning. So listen into what he had to say on how demand could turn out given the higher temperatures across the country. And he says that the summer buying has actually already started well ahead of time. Listen in.
For last 2 weeks, but otherwise, as we have mentioned earlier, there has been excellent traction and demand. And particularly, it seems there is early onset of summer in many parts of the country, and that is further boosting up the demand. And in some parts, even secondary sales, that is the consumer sales, has already begun, which normally otherwise begins from end February or middle of March.
All right, that is the word from Symphony. The stock is up over 2% in this very weak market. But with that, we do have to get into a short break on the show now. When we come back, we bring you snippets from our exclusive conversation with Novartis Global CEO Vas Narasimhan. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Business Lunch, and let's bring you some interesting corporate commentary now. We earlier caught up with H.M. Bangur, who's Managing Director at Shree Cement, to discuss pricing and demand trends in the cement sector. He also weighed in on the ACC and Ambuja Cements deal. So listen in to what he had to tell us.
Because of the closure of ACC and Ambuja for quite a long time of more than a month or so, still the price were not affected. The prices were flat compared to Q3, even before the closure and even after the closure. Only because of the seasonal variance, that is in March to June, good demand is there. So now the ground reality is that the prices should increase because of good demand. In coming year, we are hopeful that our new digital initiatives have taken place, new marketing setup is there, management changes are there. So we expect about 36 million ton in the coming year. It's up to the individuals how aggressive they may be. I think the deal was done at a fair valuation, and it became cheaper because not much public holdings have come back to the promoters. So effectively, the cost was lower than expectation.
Okay, that is the word coming in from Shree Cement. But let's also talk about another company which is, in focus today. That's NMDC Steel. This one has had a stellar run after its listing on Monday. In fact, it has been trading at a 5% upper circuit for 3 straight days. So earlier today, we got in touch with Sumit Deb, who is Chairman and Managing Director of NMDC, to discuss the outlook for the newly listed player. Listen in.
Steel plant needs to have various phases, various units which get commissioned in phases. And next would be the blast furnace and the steel melting shop and the thin slab caster, which we expect to commission end of March, April, beginning of April. I don't think I can give you a number at this stage with regard to production, but definitely a million ton, 1.5 million. So would be the a million ton would be the correct picture. The debt is around 5,000 crores is what we would ideally be looking at over a period of time. And yes, 10% is what NMDC will have to buy at some stage of. And having said that, we have not yet come to the pricing of the shares.
All right, the steel plant will be commissioned by April 2023, so that is important, and the volumes should be between 1 to 1.5 MT. This is for FY24. But another exclusive chat that we had today, India parallels the global story for Novartis. That's the word coming in from Novartis's global CEO Vas Narasimhan as he spoke to Shireen Bhan. Shireen, in fact, began by asking him what the portfolio in India looks like and what Novartis plans to bring into India from a global perspective. So listen in to that interesting conversation.
When you think about our Indian story, it parallels our global story. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell the longer history of Novartis. I mean, we started out as a chemistry company, a dye-making company. So our relationships with India go back to the 1800s. And then really formative relationships in pharmaceuticals starting in the 1940s. Since that time, we've evolved from a healthcare conglomerate. And then over the last 5 years, with $100 billion of transactions, transformed into a pure-play innovative medicines company, where we really try to be at the leading edge in 5 therapeutic areas, places like cardiovascular disease, cancer, neurological disease, and then these new technology areas which we think can transform medicine. And we now try to bring that innovation to India consistently and at scale. So some of the things that I think I'm excited about are in cardiovascular disease. We have a drug called Entresto for heart failure. And now we try to bring a drug called Leqvio for high cholesterol. We also have done a lot in immunology with our whole immunology franchise, another area I'm interested in. And probably the big area now is cancer. And how can we be one of the lead partners with India in cancer? The last part of the story, which is probably people don't know as much about, is the amount of work Novartis does in leprosy, malaria, sickle cell disease, diseases that also affect the broader range of the Indian population.
So what are the big challenges that you face from an Indian perspective at this point in time? I understand that it's an important strategic market from a capability point of view, and that's what you're hoping to expand on, but not necessarily as a commercial market at this point in time. Yeah. It's not one of your focus markets. What's the expectation in terms of growth going forward?
There's so much potential here, for sure. And I think as the middle class continues to grow in India, the demand for more healthcare is going to continue to increase. India also has world-class medical centers. When you think about research, development, we're the leading multinational in doing clinical trials in India at the moment, so it's quite significant. I think the challenge now is for India to make the transition from being a primarily generics market to trying to support innovative medicines. And other countries have made that transition, most notably China. China decided to really forcefully look at IP and data protection, start to create a national reimbursement framework, modernize their drug regulator, and as you know, China has a really blossoming biotech sector. I think over the next decade, India can make that transition. And if India makes that transition, I would expect a large biotech sector to also come up here. Also the diaspora could start to come back as well and really create those companies.
What we saw through COVID, especially as far as the vaccine manufacturing was concerned, was the way that we could bring the time down for this to get to the market. With the kind of R&D spends, and you're doubling down on R&D expenditure at this point in time, what can we realistically expect in terms of time to market for some of the drugs that you're working on?
You know, I think there will be some acceleration, but I think what's important to note is COVID was a very unique circumstance. I mean, here we really knew the disease, we knew the virus, we knew the disease, we understood the virus, and regulators felt very comfortable moving extremely quickly. I think what I observe now in global regulators is they learned how to accept trial data in new formats, how to allow us to run clinical trials much more quickly, but they also rightfully come back to a place where they want real hardcore evidence. And I really believe for the long run of our sector, you need strong regulators because the public has to trust the medicines. And we see that also with COVID vaccines. The public has to trust what ultimately we come to market with. So I'm not so upset that in the end regulators go back and say, look, what is the right thing for cancer? What is the right thing for heart disease? Let's get the right standard for the right disease and then hold companies accountable.
All right, that is a very interesting chat, and you can catch the complete conversation with Novartis Global CEO Vas Narasimhan at 3:30 p.m. on our show Global Dialogues, only on CNBC-TV18. We have to get into a short break now, but on the other side, we are going to bring you up to speed with the Russia-Ukraine conflict, take you through the latest. Russian President Vladimir Putin has suspended the only nuclear treaty with the US, and Biden is set to meet NATO allies in Warsaw. More on that when we come back.